You've answered several questions in the past about your Mount Rushmores for best wrestlers, managers, announcers, etc. Here's another one. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling teachers and or trainers?
Oh my God. Well, see, that's first of all, it's unfair because there's been so many over the years and with so many different, in so many different places, so many different styles, so many different approaches to it. It's hard to say, you know, and I mean, just truthfully, the fact that Eddie Sharpe is credited with breaking in so many fucking guys from Minnesota doesn't necessarily mean maybe that Eddie Sharpe was the greatest personal teacher, just that he had the eye for guys and got them in the spots or whatever. Obviously Rip Rogers here in OVW as for the past 25 years has had a hand in almost everybody. And Danny Davis, even though he didn't do a lot of hands-on training over the last 15 years, because he was the head of the whole company and had other responsibilities. The guys that Danny personally trained back when he first got started, guys like Doug Basham and Nick Dinsmore were actually technically the best of the bunch. You know, obviously Tom Pritchard has been incredible over the last 20 years since they started having him work out with guys in the warehouse in Stamford in the first developmental program, which was, oh God, you'd go in that warehouse and at lunchtime, all the people that were, you know, trying to eat a sandwich or whatever would go and sit and watch guys fucking taking bumps and working out in a ring in a warehouse with no audience except for that. And there'd be paint fumes and fucking sawdust where they're building the sets and everything. So that was a wonderful way to start the developmental program. But anyway, Tom Pritchard's done a great job. You've got guys down through history who have been responsible for personally training guys, and then you've got guys who are responsible just maybe for giving them their first break, and there could be 3 or 4 different people credited with supposedly training somebody. So, you know, it's hard. Les Thatcher's done a tremendous job in Cincinnati for years and years and years. But at the same point, some of the other guys in, let's see,
the great Malenko.
Well, Malenko in Florida. I was going to say Kowalski in Massachusetts. His school launched everybody from that area, from, you know, Triple H on down. But was Killer actually getting in the goddamn ring and at that point and you know, fucking stretching guys and working out with them? No, he was giving them advice and he was the overseer of the school, but he had actual different trainers in ring. Malenko trained a bunch of fucking guys down there. You're exactly right. And he probably was at the point when he started where he was still getting in the ring with guys and doing shit. Which I think that's maybe, the most important thing is that we don't lose the generation that was actually so good in the ring that they can still get in and train guys hands on instead of, unfortunately, due to age or infirmity, having to stand outside and just tell them what to do. I don't know who comes to your mind when you hear the word top trainers.
Malenko, Tom Pritchard. I think people probably don't realize just how good he is. Not just because of how smart he is and how he can explain things and also show things in the ring, but look at the guys that he actually had a part of training. I mean,
yeah.
Tell me, because you were there in the late 90s after he was in the Body Donnas. I mean, wasn't he the guy working out with Vince when Vince was getting ready to wrestle?
Yeah, no, that was the thing. Tom became kind of the in-house guy. That's why I'm saying in the warehouse, if they needed to work anything out with anybody, that's where The Rock first showed up. That's where, you know, Kurt Angle, I think his first time was in the warehouse. You know, that's Tom has pretty much for the last 20 years, if you were a top guy, you know, somewhere or another, you came through Tom.
Dominic DeNucci, I guess you could say, because of Hildebrand, Cactus Jack, and Shane Douglas.
Yeah, I guess I'm partially biased against Dom DeNucci as far as being a wrestling trainer per se, because I saw him when he was about ready to retire and he was on the downhill slide and he was working for Bruiser in Indianapolis. Oh my God, those the biggest wrestling fanatic in the world, would actually fucking go downstairs and get a Coke or something during the, as Bob Beach, the erstwhile Indianapolis ring announcer once announced him when he first came in the territory. And ladies and gentlemen, Demika DeMunchie.
Jim, let me ask you, who do you give credit for Minneapolis? Is it Vern or is it the Iron Sheik? Because he was actually the one doing the workouts.
Well, actually, you really have to give credit to the Minneapolis territory for that, because when you think about it, obviously Vern wasn't going to be in there on a daily basis. Vern oversaw the whole thing, I'm sure. I was not there, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't going to be there on a daily basis. Sheik did run the camp, but that's because Sheik was a shooter and a great amateur. And that's what Gagne wanted. But when you are coming up and you are training, and you're probably a level of athlete of a high level, like a Ken Patera, Chris Taylor. I mean, he got all the Olympic guys, or the guys that really had credentials. You're in a territory with Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens and this guy that get just a Hall of Fame, up and down the card level roster of talent. And I'm sure that probably everybody had a hand in a lot of those guys.
Who did the training for all of those guys that came out of East Tennessee within a few years? Buddy Landell, Tony Anthony, Tim Horner, and, many others.
Oh, God, that's a good question. I mean, there's been local guys like Rick Connors, who nobody has ever heard of. And I'm not knocking Rick when I say that, but he was just a local East Tennessee guy, but he broke in a few guys. And of course, it was just, once again, from being, having a local promotion there and guys, hanging around long enough till they got the opportunity.
I guess you could say Iron Mike Sharpe, who trained so many of the people from the Northeast independent scene in the 90s. He had a school in Brick, New Jersey, so a lot of people up here still talk about him, especially, he passed away a couple of years ago. And I know there'll be a lot of angry people if we don't mention Larry Sharpe.
Oh, God. Well, yeah, and once again, Larry Sharpe probably made a bigger contribution to wrestling as owning the Monster Factory and the people that he launched than he did actually with his career. Because, I mean, Larry had some spots and he was big in Puerto Rico and et cetera, but I don't think even Larry himself would say that he was a main event guy for the majority of his career, but he found a lot and trained a lot. Big Show. Big Show, that's the first place Big Show walked in the door was at Larry Sharpe's. And then Larry brought him immediately to me. And I said, just bring me the tape of his first match and I guarantee he's got a contract. And then Hogan found out about him and they stole him away and took him to WCW.
The one guy in WCW that I guess did most of the training at the power plant was Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. I've heard a lot of bad things about him. I've heard some good things about him. Do you have any thoughts whatsoever? I mean, obviously you were around him. You worked with him. Well,
once again, I liked Buddy Lee Parker as a guy in the locker room. He was a very friendly guy and he did a number of matches with the Midnight and he was a competent worker, but I mean, that's like asking, the fucking champion kite flyer to teach fucking Delta Airlines pilot how to fly a fucking plane. I've never understood that because it's not like, I know you don't have to be the biggest star in the world to be a good trainer, but he'd only been working a few years at that point himself. And he never never struck me. Maybe I'm having a stroke as being a prodigy in the ring. But I think Jody Hamilton liked him or whatever. I don't know. That's a mystery. But when you think about the power plant, who did the power plant produce? And this has been a bone of contention with me and some people the power plant was so, no. When you think about the money they put in it and the talent that was available to help train or run, who did they produce that was a great wrestler with a tremendous career of longevity at the top?
Well, obviously Goldberg came out of there, but he doesn't really fit that criteria of having the longevity. And I think he was a perfect Goldberg style wrestler, but he wasn't the classic, Ric Flair style wrestler.
Yeah, I'll give you Goldberg. Keep going.
Dallas Page was going there to learn how to wrestle, but I don't know if he was an actual power plant trainee.
Well, I mean, once again, there's an asterisk there because he he's insane and had the biggest work ethic and did everything he could to scratch and claw his way to the top and et cetera, but also a lot of top guys were helping him specifically rather than him just going there and being one of the fucking graduates of a class.
Yeah, I can't really think of too many others. But, it is interesting in baseball, some of the best managers are the guys who either never made it to the major leagues or were, not star players.
Yeah.
But they had enough time on the bench to learn the game, learn the strategy, learn the psychology of baseball by sitting on the bench and watching and learning and listening. And with wrestling schools, I guess you could say that's a similar thing. Ric Flair having a wrestling school may not be as successful as a Tom Pritchard. Not that Tom Pritchard was a guy who never made the major leagues or sat on the bench, but
your analogy is correct. But I'd like to see the reality show coming from Ric Flair's wrestling school.
It'll be at the bar.
There'll be a bar at the concession stand.
Lesson 1, meet me at the Marriott. I'll be at the bar.